Ludwekazi Ndlazi is a brand build and communication specialist whose journey has been marked by creativity and passion, as well as commitment to cultural engagement. So with a diverse background in communication and media, she has made significant strides in the South African entertainment industry, particularly through her role as a music reality showrunner for SABC One's acclaimed program, uShun, Womhlaba. So in addition to her work in television, Ludwekazi co-founded Lit Culture. It's a bookstore that's dedicated to promoting literature and fostering a love for reading within her community. And so on that note, she joins us here this morning to chat a little bit further about her journey. Good morning.
Good morning,
Thank you for your
Lisa.
time at this
Thank
hour.
you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. I trust you well as well.
I'm
just
fantastic.
Given that you found your gift, your purpose, and you're now imparting it to the rest of, those who are meant to be beneficiaries. And so I wonder, dabbling in communication as a communication specialist, a storyteller as well, how would that have come to be for you?
You know, I would always find it so interesting that when people talk about finding your purpose, it seems like this thing that's supposed to happen at this one time you just discover.
Or a voice says,
this is what you need to do. Yes. I think I'm fortunate enough to be able to take the things that I feel and what I think, put them together and communicate and tell stories. Storytelling has always been a part of our journey as Africans. This is synonymous with my own DNA, you know. So I think it was a no-brainer for me. Of course, you find your way, you try, you stumble, you fall, you get up, you try to figure out what it is that you really want to communicate, what it is that you want to really contribute in the greater scheme of things. And I think for me, I really want impact. I want stories that reflect our realities. I want impact. For example, you look at the news cycle.
Yeah.
There's nothing to smile about. There's nothing to smile about. So what stories are we telling? What are we reflecting in our communities? It's our responsibility to do that with the utmost authenticity that we can find and do so realistically.
Yeah. And so when you're looking at that impact that you want to have and rewriting those narratives, what comes to mind for you then?
Right now, if I really had to be honest with you, it's young people right at the center. What are they doing? What are they eating? What are they consuming? What are they championing? What are we championing? Because I myself am a young person, you know? And so what conversations are we having at the dinner table? What are we talking about? How are we nourishing our brains? How are we cultivating this art? How are we cultivating the spaces that we're supposed to exist in? And how do we really redefine Black excellence?
Yeah, because reading is an imperative part of that process. Like
100%.
culture and reading culture is not really fostered in our country, but even telling our stories in indigenous languages and having that exposure and agency. Talk to us about the evolution of Lit Corner, or Lit Culture, sorry, and how that would have added to restoring that much needed culture.
You know, I kind of feel like it stumbled, or I stumbled across it at a point in my life where I really wanted to find questions that matter to me. And this is an environment that says, come through. We want to bridge the gap between academia and cultivating a culture of reading in young people. And when you look at these academic spaces, these institutions, do we feel like we belong? Do we feel seen as Black people? But also, what African stories are we telling? And as the narrative is shifting, what is your contribution in your own little corner? Besides the fact that I'm just a very curious person, I really want to know. I want to know about Lisa. What does she like doing? What what can I learn from this interaction? And also, when I step into Lit Culture books, I love the fact that I'm in this world, I'm immersed in this world, so much knowledge. And you look at the culture, the kind of literature that we have as well, it's true to the stories that I would not have necessarily been able to access when I look at commercial spaces that I've found myself in, your major bookstore chains, you know, chain stores. So I think for me, the top priority is being in spaces that really reflect me, being able to use my voice as a young person, but also creating a community where we can come together and foster something that's of meaning, that also is going to leave a legacy for young people that will follow in the next generation.
Because accessibility then becomes a major factor in all of that. I mean, it's one thing to have some of the resources, but going to the remote parts of our country, I mean, talk to us about the inertia that we still have to overcome on that front, the challenges that we face there.
So the story that you guys were covering in the Eastern Cape, I'm from the Eastern Cape myself,
Yes.
Equa,
Yes.
and sure, it's fairly developed when you look at other rural areas in the Eastern Cape, but there are some challenges that I look at and I feel like I wonder what access means. There are things that we take for granted in the urban areas and we're like, okay, this is easy for everyone, but you look at the digital divide and you wonder how much are we really missing out on, and even just in terms of opportunities to educate, to inform, to entertain, what are we really doing to bridge that gap as people who are privileged enough to be able to access some of the opportunities that we do? And so reading becomes that world that you can open that window to young people to say, you may be here right now, but there's somebody on the other end who's waiting to create opportunities for you as well, so that you can come in and join the club. But I advocate for reading with everything in me.
Yes, no, I can tell you embody it, and it's so
love
refreshing because at the heart of it all, we all have a story to tell. You know, we all should be listening and perhaps learning to tell better stories about ourselves and then in relation to the world around us. Maybe that can also add to our agency as well. Being a showrunner on uShun Womhlaba, what did that experience add for your work life, but also just your worldview at large?
Whew, that was an interesting project. Also one that I was very attached to because, again, going back to our sound as Africans. So
Yes.
when you look at uShun Womhlaba, you hear about these echoing sounds of African pride. This is something that you can, in your own space, celebrate our natural sound, our authentic sound, the evolution of our music as well. So it became such a personal project to me because it was very reflective of how I grew up, what kind of music I listened to, but also not imposing our ideas and our ideals on artists, allowing them to discover who they are. And that journey on its own was a very powerful one. So it was an interesting journey. I loved every minute of it, and also it really challenged me in every possible way.
30 years into our own democracy, and speaking about that evolution, ideas, culture, social cohesion, nation building, what are we getting right? What more do we also need to perhaps fine-tune a little bit as we navigate the next 30 years?
I feel like there's a responsibility that we have, especially with platforms such as these, that we need to be accountable to the things that we've gotten right. But also, I know that there's trauma, there's generational trauma that we're still battling with. I think at the center of young people's issues today, I've noticed how mental health continues to be a trend. I wonder if it contributes in the greater scheme of things to our progress. I wonder where the place for that young person in South Africa is right now. And so 30 years into our democracy, I'd like us to be a bit more sober-minded about our solutions and less idealistic, but realistic.
What role does the creative economy or the creative arts add to the potential of growing our economy on the continent at large?
It's synonymous with life. It's synonymous with life and existing. What do you do on a bad day? When you're trying to hype yourself up for work, what do? You listen to music. All such things. It means that we need to prioritize the creative industry, and we need to really, truly interrogate what it is that we want to leave as a legacy for the next generation.
Yes, and the only thing AI can't replicate is our spirit and the essence of creativity. So perhaps this is what's going to come to the fore. Thank you for your time at this hour and for sharing your story. I'm going to leave the conversation there. Young creative Ludwekazi Ndlazi really chatting to us this morning about her journey in the musical and literary community, perhaps her impact, her purpose, and where to from here.